So yeah, today's talk is about how to bash like Marshall, like this guy. Is that how to write
That's
this
me.
bash script? Yeah. It's a pump. So so first we're gonna talk about what is bash. So basically bash it's just a programming language that designed to interact with user, which create a really flexible and on-time syntax that usually confuse people. But when you use the bash in command line, you usually don't realize that you are using bash because this thing is pretty straightforward. You just type whatever, you become command again. So and the thing is just automatically loaded when you start a terminal on any Unix or Linux machine. So the bash we're using is also called the born again shell. So the born again shell is coming
Come on,
from the
guys.
It's also coming from the shell, which is the first version of this shell language. And you also have other branch like VHS Z shell or CSS C shell. And bash is the most common popular used one. So today we'll just focus on bash, but those syntax are always exchangeable. Which means on one script that runs on bash can also run on ZSH or CSH. Kind of.
Mostly. There's differences, but
Yeah, so we'll start from basic. So in bash, you will have variable. In bash, you can always define the variable by, like, you want to define a equal to hello. Then used by the echo $A. So when you try to use the variable, you need to attach $sign in front of the variable name. The most beginning error here is when you see the first line A equal to arrow, you always think, why there's no space in between it? And you want to add space in between it. And things will break. Because the bash treats space differently. So like what you type in the command line, right? You type the command, the separate things with space. So imagine if you took away all the space, then bash will just crash, right? It's the same here. So if you add more space, the bash just separate those things. You have to read it as the A equal sign, hello. So you trigger three commands separately, or trigger the first command and take the second two as a parameter. So basically you need to put them together to be able to read correctly. So yeah, space with separate parameter. So we want to do A equal to hello word. This thing will be transferred into the A equal to hello and call the word afterward. Become two command. So you need to add the quotation to make sure that they are the same things. So basically just code everything. If you know what you're doing, just code everything. So variable can also be interpreted in string, which is the functionality that we're missing in JavaScript for a long time. Because it exists in bash from the beginning of time, but yeah. So you can do echo $A. Then you can $sign this curly bracket A. So if you want to add something after the parameter, then sometimes you get misread by the interpreter. So you can use a bracket to make sure that it read correctly. So the variable does not have type. So everything can be a command too. So it basically means that bash is a pretty functional language. Example? So you can, for example, you can say A equal to echo. Then you can say $A, which means echo echo, which will print you the echo word. You can say $A, which will print out the echo echo word. The $A, bracket $A, which $A will become echo echo, return you echo, and echo the echo, and return the echo.
You a monster.
But however, it just says that this thing is pretty flexible. So basically, when you store something and you call it, you need to realize that this thing can be interpreted as a command, but not a string you want. So you can store a variable as LS and directly call it, and it will run as LS, versus you might want it to just a string LS.
because everything is basically just, you can think of it as just always being a val all the time. But it actually is really, it can be super useful to do this, to be able to like dynamically call a specific command based on a variable.
It's function language, right? Everything variable can store function, but just don't know if it's a string or a function. That's the problem.
Well, because it's not a function.
It's a string.
It's just a string that happens to be
The function.
a function name, which is in a position which calls it to be interpreted as a function. Or, I don't know.
So in variable, you can always print out a global variable by export and env, which is print out the define the global variable, which is pretty useful when you're trying to try to do like batch version, where you have some like global environment variable. And another thing is the arithmetic expression. Like in bash, you can do something like what you do in the IRB, which is you can just add the integer to another integer, because bash to treat everything as a command. So you have to specify that you want to run the ESPR 1 plus 2 to print out the string, because they will treat the rest of the params as a arithmetic expression. Or you can use the $, double bracket. This is the same thing as similar thing as ESPR, but you can more easily to use in your program. You want to do some calculation, or you can even do the calculation assign like a equal to a plus 1 inside the later $ syntax. So just, and there are some like advanced bash skill here that people don't usually use that, but we'll just briefly mention that. You can do the pattern matching, like you can do you can do a pump key. You have passed the pattern. For example, you can use /hello/word, which means replace the variable hello replace the string hello to word inside this variable. So you have the $e equal to hello, and you use this, so it becomes word. The first thing is called the filter syntax. Basically, you filter out the HE text from the beginning, so you only print out the LLO on hello. There's like advanced bash skill, but just
Most of the time, we just use like set or Perl to do those kinds of things.
And then you have HereDoc, which is arrow. STR can be any keyword that end the HereDoc. Just
So that-
just like Ruby.
That line doesn't work because you can't, because HereDoc is really just redirection, output redirection. So it's really like the value of this string to this place. So you can't assign it to a variable because there's no command to send the output to. So if you want to put a HereDoc in a variable, you actually have to do like all this kind of funky stuff with like read and like it's kind of wonky. But if you're just like sending it to a command, it's,
I try. We'll explain that later. So there are some variables that worth mentioning. Like in the global environment, you always have PS1, PS2, PS3. The PS1 basically
what
is
about PlayStation 4? That's the new stuff.
there's no PlayStation 4. There's PlayStation 4.5. So you can always like echo your PS1, which print out what the prompt command you use. Which this example is our prompt command, which is always we use the parse git branch function to print out our current git branch. And we use the git config user initials to print out the user initial of current pair. So basically, you know how it works, and you can extend it by adding or subtract more things. -h is the host name. W is I forgot what's in our shell.
Probably the current directory.
Work directory. Oh yeah. The work directory.
Yeah, work directory.
So PS2 and PS3. PS2 is the next line. So when you press the / enter, you go to the next line. The PS2 is the prompt key for the next line. Usually this is just an error. So PS3 is the read prompt. So when you type the read, then you got this read prompt. People usually don't change it, but just barely mention. So about the function. Function is pretty straightforward. Just function as function in bracket, curly bracket, and the comment inside. You can also ignore the function, but the later syntax doesn't work on command line. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think it just gets confusing.
But it's also recommend to use the later syntax rather than first syntax.
Yeah, I don't know. I never end up writing functions right into the command line, so.
Yeah. So yeah, just use the later syntax. And there's no parameter declaration in the function. So basically, I don't know why the brackets need to exist, but we just remember to add it. So, but without the function without the parameter declaration, how do you use the function, use the parameter passing? So basically, Bash provides you a list. So you can use the $ add key, which is print out all the parameters you pass in. For example, you pass the hello 1, 2, 3, 4, and the $ add key will print out 1, 2, 3, 4. And remember the Bash separate things in space. So you have a list of $1, $2, $3, $4, and each thing is stored with each parameter you pass in. And you also have a $ pound key to return how many things you pass in, which is usually in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 example is 5. You have a $0, which is the function itself. And then you have the $ function name, which is the function you have it. $0 and $function sometimes different depending on the context that you're running on the command line. On command line, the $0 is always the bash. It's just a subtle difference. So, however, just don't need to remember that much. Just remember, you want to get parameter from bash, just use the $1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Give you what you want. And there's another thing is called $? This thing not only exists in the function, but exists on the outer scope. This is mean the last return of the function.
It's whatever the last command returns anywhere. So even if you just do like echo, that still returns things instead of some 0 usually. And $ will have the return value 0 in it.
So you have like 0 or 1, which is the only 2 results.
Any positive value, possibly less than 120 is valid. I think it's.
So you can use exit 125, 128.
I mean, some programs use different exit codes to represent different types of failure.
But they all count as success,
0 is the only one
0
that's
is the only
success.
thing that's success.
not negatives.
I don't think we followed that with negative. Not sure.
So
Unless you can exit with -1.
it's one byte return value. 0 to.
I mean, the pretty standard is just like 1 for error. You know, and if you need something more specific, then you can use different ones to document it. But
So go on. So for example, you can use this hello. Actually, it's x is 0. Happy wrong. So they only return 1, 0, 1, 0 to 128 actually. So if you want to return some string, then you can use the echo, which can be called by the upper level, but it's not the.
well, remember, returning 0 is a string.
But return 0 won't. You can't directly use it. You have to use the like $? Question mark to get it.
Right, but I'm saying like return 0 there is not a number. It's a
Okay.
string.
Zero
Each
is
single
a string.
character is. Everything is a string unless it's an array.
So you got into calculations, math stuff?
I mean, you can,
You have
but it
this
just
list.
interprets the strings as numbers for the purposes of that command. Right, because you're just calling to a subcommand and it just sees a number. I can sketch a string, but it's a number, so it's like, oh, well.
So EXPR will take your sequence of string arguments and parse each of them into a
Yeah.
number or operator as appropriate.
EXPR is a built-in, so it might do some weird stuff, but like VC, the command VC basic calculator, I think it stands for. Well, like you can literally just pipe in like a string, you can literally just pipe in like 1 plus 2 plus 3 and it'll spit out the result.
And so continue the function that you can require by type the source and file name, or declare a local variable which only exists in the function scope, like the local keyword, which is much recommend that when you pass parameter, you always define them with the name variable as a name variable. For example, passing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you might want to say $1 equal to like the count,
Yeah,
$2
whatever.
equal to something that have the name with it to make your function more easy to understand.
Because if you just have just $1, $2, and $3 throughout your function, no one's gonna know what the hell's going on, including you.
Two hard things in computer science. Two hard things in computer science.
Name things.
Remembering to name things, naming them.
Many things, catch evaluation, parameters.
So we'll talk about the pipeline. So pipeline can redirect an output, which in Unix is always a file descriptor, to another file descriptor. For example, you can echo hello world arrows to hello.txt. This means that we redirect the standard output to another file descriptor, to this hello.txt. So you can also redirect the error message, which if you type something that it doesn't exist, you will pop out the command not found arrows. Now you can pipe this arrow into an arrow.txt file. Then you can also redirect them both by end arrows to the place called def_new. Because def_new is things that means nothing. So you can redirect anything there. It's like a black hole trash can. It doesn't respond to anything. It's like an empty file descriptor. It's easy. It's pretty handy to use when you try to suppress the arrows or suppress something. So this is the file descriptor. So when you type something in keyboard, this thing goes into file descriptor 0, which is calling the standard in, and then it goes out to the bash command and get run command and kind of output to the standard out, which is the file descriptor 1, or the standard arrow, which goes to the file descriptor 2. And then the file descriptor 1 and 2 also go to display. It's like you basically have 3 file descriptor: standard in, standard out, standard arrow. That's the basic Unix like command interaction.
There's more, but it's complicated.
Yeah.
It's not working.
It's not working. So basically, if you echo hello to the arrow.txt, that makes the standard arrow to point to the arrow.txt. That means you replace the file descriptor to another file. So every arrow will go to the arrow.txt, but the standard out is still going to display. So if you do this, echo hello, you point the 2 standard arrow to a file, point 1 to another file, which means that the standard out message and the error message will separately print out the 2 files. So what will this bring? It's like when we echo 1 to $2 and 2 to hello.
I'm not gonna answer.
Marcia?
Should I answer?
Yeah. Or anyone?
Should that be $2 or ampersand?
Well, ampersand. He said $sign, but it should be ampersand.
Is the ampersand just a concatenation of 2 commands?
The ampersand
No,
here is
they-
mean the location. So when you try to pipe things to the another sign, then you always add ampersand and file descriptor to tell the bash say this is the location. It's hardly
So the ampersand means that I'm going to just give you a file descriptor number to output to instead of a text file. Like there's not much of a practical difference between redirecting to like food dot text
Yeah.
and saying &2 just means, oh, well, instead of redirecting to a file, go to the file descriptor 2.
Which is standard error, right?
Correct.
Do you go to the thing that file descriptor 2 is pointed to, or the descriptor itself?
It would be this.
So you piped 1, 2, and
It doesn't. I mean, there's no alias. I mean, it just goes to. It just says like everything that would have been going to 1 go to 2.
Is the one strictly superfluous in this example?
It is
Okay.
because it's implicitly 1.
So 2 is standard error. Is it saying write it to standard error and to hello.txt?
Doesn't it become standard error, and therefore when you do the 2 pipe, you're actually, like the hello that you piped into error, now gets piped into hello.txt. Right? It's like this would just echo hello into hello.txt.
So people usually think that way. It's not. So this works like this. So sender output still go to display. Sender arrows go to hello.txt. Because it interprets from the left side to the right side. So the first line, 1, 2, and 2, this means set the file descriptor 2 to 1, which means the file descriptor 2 is pointing to display. So it means display to display. So the sender arrow still point to display. So it doesn't do anything. So the second line pointed the sender arrow to the file. So then they replace the second file descriptor to the file descriptor. So the sender arrow goes to the file. So if you want it to work properly, we need to reverse the sequence here, which is being counted here. And copy the second hello.txt file descriptor to sender arrow to 2. Then you replace the 2 to 1, and everything is go to hello.txt. So it's just treat them as like equal, like assign, right? So when you type something, you assign the file descriptor to your sender output or sender input.
So you're saying the left, the one brackets has to be reversed?
Yeah. So you can see them as a assign, right? You assign the hello.txt file descriptor to replace the sender arrows file descriptor. Then make them output the things into this file. So in the base C syntax, they treat it like that way. They treat it as an equal sign. Yep.
I would say that I've never written something as confusing as this, but I've written something more confusing than this with redirection,
Right. Lots of things.
which Jimmy has seen and
This-
is terrible.
We'll show them this.
Yeah, we can show them that. I don't even remember what it does.
So, yeah, so another thing is that you have this pipe command, which means that you pipe the output of one command to another file's sender input. So this means that, for example, you can write a function called say my name that you call the read, from reading things from the sender input, and then you echo this thing. So you can like echo Jimmy and pipe to a function called say my name, and this thing will read the sender input and print it out.
So when you say read, you don't have to say, like you could say name equals $1.
You don't need to
No.
specify the dollar sign, you just add
Because it's
past
not
the string.
because $1 would be a parameter, but there's no parameter to say my name. There's only input set to standard in, right? Because a parameter would be echo
So
Jimmy
input is
pipe.
different than parameters.
Correct.
Yeah, it's treated differently. So
The parameter would be after say my name on the bottom. It would be like say my name, foo, and then foo would be parameter 1.
So yeah, this is a difference you can notice when you write function. That if you want to do something like the first line, you want to pipe something into, you have to do an extra if function. For example, you can do the if, check the read function name, and if the read success, then you do something. Else, it doesn't do something. And if read doesn't success, then you check the parameter that you got passed in, so and so forth.
Yeah, and like, so the standard in file descriptor is there in say my name, and then the first command that tries to, it just basically sits there and like, nothing is consuming its input. right? It's just an open file handle and nothing's consuming it till you call read, which is a command that happens to consume standard in, and then puts it in the variable called name, because that's how read works, because read is sort of like a crazy thing.
It says the first line can read the pipe, but literally the first line of the function, but no other lines.
No,
This is how to say
it could
the
be
probably
standard in.
to read.
Standard in is there till something reads it,
Okay, so the first read.
because it's a buffer, basically, right? It's a buffer that's sitting there, and until something consumes it, it's still the cursor for the buffer is still at the beginning.
You should definitely grab it first thing.
Doesn't matter. I mean,
It seems good advice.
it leaves it open longer, but it doesn't matter. Because I mean, if you can't consume it yet, then it, right, you're just moving the memory around, right? You're moving the memory from the buffer into your program. It doesn't matter where it sits, really. There's no way to rewind it though, because it's just input. You can't cursor over it.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about the flow control, which is pretty confusing in Bash because the syntax-wise it's hard to remember. Basically, you just remember there's a keyword, there's body header. The main difference is you have an extra keyword, extra word called body header of every function or every flow control. So like if you have to have a then and the end of the if. So for example, if has the expression then, and then the end of the if is fi, is reverse. And usually people use put the then and if together in case you miss it. So you have like if and the line break and the then and then body and the fi.
I usually put it like,
But
just put a semicolon at the end of if expression and put then on the same line.
Yeah, but I mean this is easier to understand that you know what keyword you have to
Yeah.
type here. But in practical you usually put them in the same.
Yeah. Because otherwise it's just waste of line.
So for for, which is easy to remember, you just for var variable name and in collection and do something and done, which is different than the if.
What's the reason, what's the story, I guess, behind the end of the previous if being fee? Is there a good story there?
I mean, case is also backwards, so case is e-stack.
Or what's the reason there? What's the story?
So
I don't
The
know,
main
because
difference-
that's what they wanted to make it because they thought it was cool. I don't know. I
They
don't
were
know what the answer
dyslexic.
is. Of course, then they made while, and they made for, and then they just made them both done. And
So I
while.
think the main
Which makes
difference
sense, I
is
think.
if it's a loop, then it's do and done. If it's
Yeah.
not a loop, it's a flow control, then it's the regular word, the reverse word. That's how I remember.
I don't know what the history behind it is.
Since they're just trying to mess with people.
So for the collection here, you basically
What's the
everything is
opposite
string,
of
right? So you can pass a string with separate with space, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it will loop 5 times. Every time it will build with a different variable. So
So this is one of the like weird cases where you actually usually don't want to quote something, because if you quote it, then it will be one thing, right? But if
Which
it's
does-
white space separated, then it'll treat each token individually. That's one thing to loop over.
If you put comma in between with space, is comma a separate element?
Comma
How
would
does
be
Honor
considered,
treat comma?
comma would be considered part of the token.
you got 1 comma.
So if it was comma without a space between it and something else, then it's just part of the thing.
So do you ever use comma for anything?
It doesn't have any syntactic, I mean,
Taxes.
there's some cases, but it's rare.
What's the collection? Is it an actual less than greater than, or is
You
it?
can
No,
pass a
no, it's
string.
just
Just
a,
a straight up.
it's just a
unquoted
string with, yeah.
They separated.
If I said for var in a string of separated words, would it give me each word, or can I?
It'll
Yep.
give you each word.
You can do some stuff to like change